I would now like to welcome Alice. Where's Alice? Alice is a young patient who's going to talk about her journey. But Alice, you've done so much for MPN Voice with your cookbook and with your monthly blog. It's a real pleasure to welcome you here. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thank you so much to MPN Voice for inviting me to speak today. My name's Alice, I'm 27 with JAK2 positive ET, and I'm going to share my experience of being a young person with an MPN. So firstly, I'll share my journey to diagnosis and experience of living with ET. I'll then share a bit about the monthly blog I've been writing specifically about young patient experiences. And then I'll finish by talking about diet and the exciting launch today of the MPN Voice recipe book. So I wasn't diagnosed with an MPN until I was 21, but I think it's quite likely my MPN journey stretches back further than that. So I first started to experience severe migraines with aura when I was 9 years old. Migraines had an enormous impact on me and my family's life. They were a constant presence for me at school and university until I was diagnosed with an MPN in the third year of my undergraduate degree. By this time, I was suffering from frequent migraines, visual disturbances, and tinnitus. I could no longer do any cardiovascular exercise without getting a migraine, and I couldn't walk up the 3 flights of stairs to my 9 a.m. lecture theatre without triggering an aura, sweating a lot, drinking gallons of water. However, I was told that I had typical migraine symptoms and there was nothing to investigate further. A GP in my new university town, who I'll forever be grateful for, listened afresh to my story and symptoms and did 3 blood tests, which revealed an elevated platelet count in the low 500s. He then did a JAK2 test, which came back positive. And I can still remember the exact moment that a trainee doctor from the practice called me to share the result while I was revising for my Christmas exams, saying she was so sorry. And of course, at that time, I had no idea what it meant, what JAK2 was, or what the future might hold. And so the day after my 21st birthday, I was diagnosed with an MPN. Initially, there was quite a lot of ambiguity as to whether I had ET or PV because I had a slightly raised red blood count and I also had a low EPO result. And I eventually made my way to Guy's Hospital in London where I saw Claire Harrison. Discovering MPN Voice at this time was so helpful and proved an invaluable source of information on rare diseases. Crucially, on taking a daily clopidogrel tablet for ET, I went from having regular debilitating migraine attacks to virtually no migraines at all. And I really can't emphasize how life-changing that was and has been. I graduated, I did a master's degree, and I was awarded my PhD this summer. And I should say that that photo on the left there was taken the day I had a red blood cell mass test at Guy's Hospital, which clarified a diagnosis of ET. So if the graduation photos are the highlight reel, this is just a small insight into what it's like to have a ET and live with it daily. So I continue to be on watch and wait, and my platelet count fluctuates between 600 and 750. I've met other patients with much higher blood counts than me that have told me they don't have any symptoms, which certainly isn't my experience. But over the years, I've also met lots of ET patients at forums like this one who have very similar symptom profiles. So the symptoms that have the biggest impact on my life are the head pain and visual disturbances, which can range from sort of silver blobs in my vision or gold lines in the periphery, which I find really frightening. I also have very cold hands and feet. And as you can see from the slide, my hands will randomly go very red and swell up, particularly after eating. I also experience fatigue, which can feel like I just hit a brick wall and I just have to stop what I'm doing. And interestingly, it happens most frequently right before my period is due. And it's important to say that I'm currently trialing a daily aspirin in combination with clopidogrel to see what impact it has on my symptoms. And so far, it's had a really positive effect on my neurological symptoms and also on my periods, which have become really painful again, just like they have been at school prior to taking clopidogrel. So these are a few things that I find helpful in managing my symptoms. I try to keep to a good routine in terms of going to bed and waking up at the same time every day, both during the week and the weekend. I drink a lot of water because I feel almost perpetually dehydrated, and I do notice that it has a positive impact on my visual problems. A daily walk in the fresh air, getting out in nature, which is really valuable for both physical and mental health. Mindfulness, trying to keep in the present moment as much as possible. Eating a healthy anti-inflammatory diet, which I'm going to come on to a little bit later. And perhaps an obvious one, wearing thermal socks and gloves to keep my extremities warm. So being a young person in the MPN community is not always easy. It's difficult to face a blood cancer diagnosis at a young age and not see many other people that look like you or are at a similar life stage. You might be at school, college, university, thinking about what career you want to do, and an MPN diagnosis can really change your plans and parameters for what might be possible and what's best for your health. It's also tricky to know what to disclose to friends, colleagues, employers, and to think that you have your whole life stretching ahead of you, but the uncertainty about what that future might hold. When I was first diagnosed, I did find it quite scary to read the MPN literature and see it talk about an average age of diagnosis of 60 and above. And I hugely appreciated any online videos or stories that I came across that spoke about the young patient experience. And so it's for this reason that I started writing an online monthly blog for MPN Voice, which you can see here. I've done a mixture of Q&As and some of my own kind of reflective pieces covering a whole range of topics, from sharing an MPN diagnosis with others to what it was like to have a bone marrow biopsy, and also some of the research about why we might have MPNs in the first place. All of these are available on the MPN Voice website, and I've been so grateful to everybody who's read it, contributed to it, or taken the time to email me or comment on Health Unlocked. One recent post that I'd like to highlight is this one from September. So to mark Blood Cancer Awareness Month, I reached out to 12 young patients aged between 21 and 35 across the world who very kindly agreed to share their story with me. They're really moving, filled with invaluable guidance and wise words. And I think together they help shine a light on the young patient experience and really reinforce that there's no single MPN journey. I wrote another blog post about diet and MPNs. So during the pandemic, I started to experience unbearable pain in my head. And it was at this time that I came across the work of Dr. Angela Fleischman, who's an MPN specialist in California, who studied nutrition and MPNs. Dr. Fleischman explains how MPNs are diseases characterized by chronic inflammation, with inflammatory cytokines potentially driving symptoms and even future disease progression. And she builds on research that explores the positive impact of an anti-inflammatory Mediterranean-style diet in cardiovascular diseases, which are similarly characterized by chronic inflammation. And so her thinking is that adopting a Mediterranean diet might also reduce inflammation and potentially symptoms in MPN. So I decided to give it a try. I cut out all meat, but still eat fish, and increase the number of beans, pulses, and vegetables on my plate. I don't eat any processed sugar, so no desserts, which I realize is incredibly boring. I started to eat more nuts and Marmite as sources of vitamin B12 to promote nerve health. And incredibly, I noticed a positive impact on my symptoms within just a few weeks. It's important to stress that amitriptyline was a miracle drug in terms of managing the nerve pain, but I noticed that the diet had a really positive impact on removing some of the background symptoms that I was experiencing. So I like to think of it sort of working in combination and helping the amitriptyline along. And happily, I've now been on this diet for 18 months. It was this positive experience that led my family to come up with the idea of an MPN Voice recipe book. This amazing book, which we're launching here today, contains healthy recipes submitted by MPN patients in our community, and it also contains some really helpful information about MPN. Thanks to the charity's fundraising committee, who I'm looking there at the back, Debbie, Mark, Maz, everyone, we've been able to put together this resource, which we hope will just be the start of more conversations about diet, inflammation, and MPNs. We're really grateful to everybody who's contributed to it, and I hope you'll support MPN Voice today by purchasing a copy. And if you're watching online, you can also buy a copy on Amazon. And I think it would make a really nice Christmas present or stocking filler that you could give to family and friends. And crucially, it will help MPN Voice continue its vital work in supporting patients and their families. So thank you very much for listening. And if you are a young patient and would like to get in touch, please don't hesitate to contact me at info@mpnvoice.org.uk. Thank you very much.
Alice, a huge thank you to you. You are truly an inspiration for young patients. Thank you.